Mr. Rice, the live stream is active, so we're ready when you are.
Great, thank you. Today is January 10th, 2022. Welcome to Finance. All right, there are no public comments on the public comment sheet this evening, so we're going to move right into the presentation of the 2020-2021 financial report.
Thank you, Mr. Rice. Tonight we have with us Mr. Tim Sawyer. He's our lead auditor with our audit firm of Barbicane, Thornton and Company. He has three different documents that are attached to your board docs tonight. He has the June 30th, 2021 annual financial report, also a board communication letter from the auditor, and the third is a presentation in which he's going to go through with you tonight as a kind of a compilation of our last fiscal year. So, could you pull that up for him, please?
I got it. Is that what you were expecting it to look like? Okay. And then I'll leave that with you.
Okay,
Okay,
thank you very much.
sure, thank you.
All right, good evening, everyone. All right, so, like I said, I am here to go over the audit results. I'm going to give you a quick summary overview as opposed to going through the actual financial statements page by page. But if anybody does have any questions related to the audit, I'll be glad to entertain those as well. But so for the audit results, starting here on page 2 of the document, if you're following on the laptops, we have the audit summary. So the status and report, we actually did do the audit here on site, and most of our field work was completed on September 15th, and then we go back to our offices, help finish writing the financial statements, go through our review processes, which is a 3-tiered review process. We have an initial detail review, then my partner review by me, and then we also have a quality control review before we go ahead and finish and issue the audit. We issued the audit report was dated December 7th, and then you received unmodified or clean audit opinions on all your different opinion units within the financial statements, which are the governmental and business type activities, each major fund being the general fund, capital projects fund, and also the food service fund. Also what we consider the aggregate remaining fund information, which are your fiduciary funds, as well as the schedule of expenditures of federal awards, which deals with your federal expenditures related to the government grants that you get. We also issued unmodified audit opinions on 2 other reports for your compliance related to the internal controls, as well as your compliance with the federal award programs. So as part of the audit, just to kind of give you a flavor for what we do, so we come in and we look at the account balances and all, make sure everything is good. And part of that, we look at your internal controls, cash receipts, cash disbursements, and payroll being your largest 3 transaction cycles. So we look at controls for all of those cycles, and each year we do a dive into one of those where we select a more in-depth sample and look at those. This year we did a sample of payroll transactions. I'm glad to tell you from the sample that we selected, we noted no issues with the payroll process, so your internal controls are designed and operating effectively on there. We also, even though we did the deeper dive into payroll, we do look at expenditures and receipts as well, and we compare those back to the processes that were going on when we tested those last year or the year before, and make sure that everything's still operating effectively too. And so we have no issues with any of your control cycles. As far as the single audit goes, anytime you expend over $750,000 in federal programs, you have to have what's called a single audit, which focuses on the federal expenditures. Based on that, we looked at 2 programs this year. We had to look at the special education cluster, as well as the elementary and secondary school emergency relief for the ESSERS programs. I apologize for the typo in there. We looked at child nutrition last year. So, but those were the 2 programs that we looked at this year, and we looked at child nutrition last year, and we've had no issues with any of your federal programs either. So, doing an excellent job there. As far as the single audit goes, one of the last pieces that you have to do is your data collection form, which has to be submitted to the Federal Audit Clearinghouse, and that has already been submitted and accepted. And then the last piece is to submit it to the state through the email address that is there. Next, we're going to go over a couple of just financial highlights for you. So these numbers here are based on your, what we call the Fuller Pool, or your government-wide statements. So these numbers include, when you're looking at the financial statements, will include all your capital assets, all your debt, and other long-term liabilities that are in fact in there. So if you look at your cash and cash equivalents, you're actually up about 2 million from 50.8 million to 52.5 million. Your investments are about the same, 13.9, 13.5. Receivables up a little bit from 1.9 to 2.2. And your capital assets net of depreciation, which is obviously one of your biggest assets, that were at 150.8 million last year. They're at 149.4 million this year. Now, with your capital assets, if you were never to buy anything or construct another building or anything, those would constantly go down by the depreciation amount. And depreciation is just allocating that cost of those assets over their useful life. So for instance, buildings are 40 years, so when you build and put in place a new building site, then you start taking 1/40th of that building over the next 40 years. So those numbers, if you never added any more equipment or anything, would constantly come down. On the liability side, for your accounts payable, accrued salaries, debt, and your net deficit, again, accounts payable, 3 million to 3.2. Your accrued salaries, which are your summer pays, was 14 million, is 13.8 million. It really depends on the number of days in the payroll period so they can go up or down a little bit based on number of days. Your bonds and those payable net of any premiums or discounts, 63.5 million. It's now 52.5 million. And then even your deficit, you were at 74 million last year, and now your deficit is at 65.3 million. Just to point out with the deficit, when you look at those, I can't think of any school district that does not have a net deficit position, because when we, a couple of years ago, had to implement the GASB 68 and 75 for the pension and OPEB liabilities, you have to carry your portion of those liabilities on the books. Your pension liability is 220 million. And the OPEB is 17.8 million. So you can see if you took those two things off, your net deficit goes the other way. So, but you're in the same boat as far as any other district goes when you're looking at your statement of net position. What you're kind of used to seeing more on a monthly basis is your fund equity. So these will kind of be in tune more to your monthly financials. So in the general fund, you were at 18 million, you're now at 16.5. Capital projects, you were at 16 million, you're up to 18.4. Part of that is because you make a transfer over into the capital projects fund. And then your food service fund runs at a deficit. It was at 2 million, it's at 1.4. And the food service fund runs similar to the government-wide. It does have to pick up its portion of the OPEB and pension liabilities. So that's what drives that deficit in there as well. Quick look at some of your revenues and the expenditures. So your general fund revenues were about 141 million last year. They were up to 145 million. And of course in that is all your the grants as well. The food service was 2.2. It was up to 3.2. A big portion of that was extra federal money related from COVID and the switch over to all reimbursed meals. Then on the expense side, your instruction expenditures, 86.2 up to 88.2. Support services were 40 million and 40.3 million. Your non-instructional, 1.6. They actually were down a little bit to 1.5. Your debt service was at 11.9. Was at 11.9 last year and 11.3 this year. And then your food service at about 2.6 each year. So overall, not too much, going on. You're pretty consistent in all your categories there. These last couple pages here are just our required communications, which is part of the reason I am here tonight. So I mentioned, when we start the audit, we issue an engagement letter every year as well as a planning memo. It just allows Sean and his team to get everything ready for us. And I mentioned the unmodified or clean audit opinions. There are no accounting policies that are controversial. You're following everything that's set forth by the Government Accounting Standards Board as far as how you report your transactions. No uncorrected misstatements. Any proposed audit adjustments that we had were sent over and recorded in the financial statements that we looked at. I mentioned no material weaknesses or significant deficiencies in your internal control. As part of the audit, you have supplemental information that's included. Part of it is related to the pension and OPEB. There's extra schedules that have to be there, so we compare that to make sure it's the same information in those schedules. We'll find as well. The big one here is on the top of the page, the fraud and illegal acts. I'm happy to tell you that based on our audit, we're not aware of any. And then the rest of it just kind of is our normal, quick, items. And as you can see, there's no issues with anything there as far as any difficulties encountered within the audit or any findings or any other issues that we had with the audit. So that's kind of the audit in a quick nutshell. If anybody does have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them, or if you had a chance to read through the financial statements and have any questions on the financial statements themselves.
Any board members? Questions? Comments? Mr. Wurz, on the phone, any comments, questions?
I don't have any text saying that he didn't.
Okay,
It's true.
thank you.
Thank you.
I just take a second to thank Mr. Sawyer and his group. They do a great job in the audit. They're very.
No, not at all. Looks pretty good. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, thank you.
Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, Mr.
Back to the future.
Oh, because it's so delayed on everybody's mind. I can't do that. I tried doing that.
Time
before,
delay.
but
Very good.
Okay, so
Okay.
just want to thank Mr. Sawyer and his group. They do a great job in the audit. They're very helpful to us. Any questions we have, they're very quick to answer. And also want to thank, my staff, Director of Finance, Amy Light, does a tremendous job. This is a big operation, over $140 million budget. We have a Director of Finance, a bookkeeper, a accounts payable person, and a payroll person. And of course, Mrs. Schuler, who is my administrative assistant, myself. It's a big operation with a pretty small team, but they're all very good at what they do, and they deserve a lot of credit for year after year producing excellent audit reports. So I'm very proud of them.
Absolutely, it's a huge thank you to you and your team. Always an excellent job. Thank you.
Appreciate it, John. Thank you.
Sir, thank you.
Pass on my congratulations to your team as well. It's a pleasure working with them.
I will, thank you.
And then next we have the budget timeline. That you, Mr. Dahl.
Is that a presentation?
Yeah, I have a presentation, so I'll just scoot up there. I will.
You have a good night.
Thank you,
night.
take care.
Thank you very much, appreciate it.
That's me. So to kind of kick off the 22-23 budget year, we wanted to do, here in January, something a little different this year, just give you a budget timeline put in front of you. Some folks, some board members are new. And this will be a review to some of you, it's old news to some of you, but we thought it might be helpful with the amount of new board members to just give you a timeline, kind of prime you a little bit to see what's coming over the next few months in the budget process. So in October, we put a budget calendar in front of the board. Board takes a look at that, gives us our blessing, and then the October 25th meeting, the board passed the resolution to not raise any taxes for the real estate rate above the index. The Act 1 index this year is 3.4%, which basically caps any tax increase that the board can do in the next fiscal year at that percentage. Okay, so what doing that does is allows the board to go into what we would call the normal budgeting process and not have to do the Act 1 budgeting process, which basically is passing a budget in February, which is really a difficult thing to do if you want to have an accurate budget, or as accurate as possible. So we've always felt that we could live within whatever the Act 1 index is, and so we, as an administration, are always advise the board to put that Act 1 percentage into place. And since 2016-17, that was the last year that we actually did raise taxes, took any tax increase at all. So we've put this in motion in place since each year since then, but haven't had to raise taxes. So November 5th is kind of when things get real for everyone out there. That's when Amy Light sends out the budget instructions to all the department leaders. And we basically give them a couple months to meet with their teams and so forth and pull their budgets together. And on January 5th, actually last week was their deadline to have their budgets in the system, in place, so that we could begin the process. Other things we do in January is when we really started to look at the revenue budget for next year and start to develop the revenue budget. The assessed valuation from the assessment office, the total assessed values. The first real good numbers for next year come out in January. Those are the numbers that the county is actually using for their tax year of 2022. So those are the assessed values that I'll start with. And then every 2 months going out, they'll come out with updated numbers, and I'll update my real estate numbers based on those. We're also then looking at all the rest of our local revenues based on our actual numbers, our history of our actual numbers, and any projections that we have moving forward. Our biggest local revenues, of course, are our real estate taxes, about $80 million, and earned income tax is about $18 million. So those are our two big players at the local level. Then we also, January and February is when we are looking for anything in the district that is going to be added for the next year. So we're looking at capturing any potential new positions. So any departments that are looking for our programs and so forth, that information comes in, and we put that information together. And remember, each year you'll see actually a sheet of new positions where we'll put those positions in front of you as a board, talk about them all individually. Also, at this point, the HR department is working really, really hard on the personnel budget. So every person that works in this district has a slot, and they have a cost to them, salary and benefits. And that is a tremendous part of the budget is the salary and benefits. So we worked very, very hard through January with the folks in the HR department worked very hard to put that together. And then I will spend about a month, 3-4 weeks just combing through those reports page by page, just making sure that everything looks good. So now that we talked about January 5th was the deadline for the departments to have their budgets in. So at this point, it becomes more our game in here in the administration building. We would take the budgets that were submitted, and each department's budget. Ms. Light, Amy Light, our director of finance, will put together a spreadsheet for us. A couple of years of actual history for all the accounts in that budget, the current year spend, where they're at, and what they're asking for in the next budget. And Dr. Bolden, myself, and Amy will sit down with every department leader and go through those budgets line by line and talk about things that are added, things that are taken out, things that the school or department or building need, any initiatives that that principal or department leader might want to put in place for next year. And we'll spend considerable amount of time going through that process with folks so that we have a clear understanding of what they need and they have a clear understanding of what we need or what we expect as central office. So, and we'll start those next week, January 14th, and run through first week of February with those meetings. Sometimes 3-4 meetings a day. So it keeps Ms. Light coughing, trying to keep up with getting all the spreadsheets done. So, and then we will have the governor. He'll put his annual budget address out usually in the beginning of February. The governor comes out with his budget, and within his budget, he'll have an Department of Education section, and we will see what he has in his mind for education for the next year, and then we will receive information from the Department of Education as to what that means for us as far as funding, basic education funding, special ed funding, other state funding line items, and we'll take those numbers, and sometimes with a grain of salt, we'll believe them, and sometimes we don't believe them, but we then put a conservative estimate in our budget of what those numbers might be. So. Then at the February finance meeting, as we're doing all this work internally, and we're not quite ready for you as a board yet to see the budget, we'll kind of give you a budget kickoff and outlook presentation where we'll kind of give you some history. We'll kind of give you some numbers to what Tim was talking about of how we finished last year, some comparisons, things like that. Give you a little bit of an outlook, so forth. And then when we get to March, that's the first time we'll actually sit down and give you real data that we're working on and real numbers. And we'll do that, and it will also then bring in the different departments that will present each month their particular budgets. In March, transportation and operations will be in, they'll do their budget presentation. And then you can see April and May, we'll do the same thing. And then we will be updating numbers through April, May, to hopefully work our way to a balanced budget. That's always our goal. And then actually at the May voting meeting, that is the first time you as a board will vote to approve or not approve a budget. The board has to vote twice, May and June, to approve the budget and for our school district. So, and we'll make changes as we go, and we'll go through them with you each month at the finance meeting. So between now and June, you'll really be tired of me because we'll get into some very long nights together.
Yeah.
We like to see the numbers, though. The numbers are always
Always good. It's always exciting.
numbers are always great.
Any questions?
Any questions, Mr. Wers, or any?
Is he still muted?
Nope, nope.
Very clear cut.
Look at that.
Thank you, Mr. Robert. I appreciate that.
Thanks.
Tech school debt refinancing status update.
Okay.
Back to you, Sean.
All right. Don't have a on the screen presentation for this one. Just thought I would give you a little verbal update of where we're at. As you know by the happy emails I sent out on December 15th, we did receive our credit rating. We went through that process, and we are we're very happy to say we maintained our AA1 rating, which is we received that for the first time a year ago when we did our bond issue. We were able to maintain that rating. That is one rating below the top, and hopefully someday we'll get there, but we'll keep working at it. We all have goals, and that's one of our goals to get there. Tomorrow, January 11th, our preliminary official statement will go out. PNC will send that out to the market, and it'll officially open our bond process to the market. So January 18th was going to be our next date. That was to be the day that the bonds were priced. Received an email late today from Tim Kerr at PNC. based on the holiday on the 17th, he's advising us, if we can, to move from the 18th to the 19th. Just to give the market an extra day, give those people that are in the market another day to look at our POS, our preliminary official statement, and so that we're not backed up to the holiday. So talk to Ms. Cullen, and she's okay with that. She has to be involved in that process. Because as you remember, we passed the resolution that the bonds were priced, and then the board president has that last say. So we'll have to give that go-ahead if the numbers are good, that we'll move forward. So I haven't had a chance to talk, just kind of surprised Dr. Volk with this, so I do apologize. But just got the email, like I said, late this afternoon, so. But that's just what'll happen is that morning, our bonds will open for pricing. And based on the level of interest is how, if there's a lot of interest, then PNC can get very aggressive, lowering those interest rates. If there's not a lot of interest in our bonds, then PNC would have to perhaps bring the rates up and make them more attractive to buyers. So it all depends on how much interest is there, and that's why Tim wants to move this one day, thinking that that extra day will garner us some more interest in the market. So that's now going to be January 19th, if that works out, and we'll get that confirmed. Then on February 14th, Tim Kerr from PNC will be at our finance meeting, and he'll sit and go through all the results with you. So and you'll be able to ask any questions that you have at that point, get all the answers, and see all the numbers firsthand. Okay. And then on February 15th is then the closing. And then it's a 90-day wait until the bonds, about a 90-day wait until those bonds are callable, because it's a date in May. So the money that we receive, the bonds we sell here in the next month or so, will sit in the investment until that 90 days up. And then they'll repay those bonds from the tech school, and we'll be set.
Now, if I do remember, there was an estimated savings of this refinance.
Yeah, the estimated savings was over $3 million.
Thank you, I just wanted you to say that out loud, so I appreciate that.
And that has to do with both lower interest rates and also our collapsing of the time frame of the repayment, going from payoffs in 2045 to payoffs in 2028 or 2029. So that removing all those years of interest payments, saving us a great deal of money. So luckily, we're in a financial position to be able to do that within our current bond structures or debt structures.
That is great. That's great news. Any questions, comments?
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dahlberg, and your whole team. All right, review of contracts for approval.
Okay, we have a few contracts this month. So, the contracts A and B are both Learn Well. They're educational services for the students identified in the agenda. $50.25 per hour. And Learn Well is a placement where students have a medical condition. And this is the educational part of that when they're placed in a medical facility. Okay. The next contract is for the winter ball dance at the high school. It is for the DJ services, music services for East Coast Event Group. $1,495, and that is paid by the students for the winter ball. The next contract is another Market Street Sports Group contract. They found a sponsor for the student section at Hellman Field. Sean Velez, agent. He's an agent of State Farm Insurance. So he would like to sponsor the student section. The cost is $13,500, broken out over 3 years, from January of 2022 to January 2025. Has been reviewed by the solicitor, and the district shares $8,750 of that $13,500. So Market Street Sports keeps us a piece of that. There's a piece that goes to the cost of the advertising as far as the banners, and then the rest, the $8,750, comes to the district.
Sean, could you explain that a little bit as to, how do people find out about that marketing opportunity? And, you know, why do we not do it directly? What's the benefit that we have by using an outside vendor to market that?
Yeah, so we've used Market Street Sports for a few years, and they are a company that has worked with a lot of PIAA. They're the official sponsorship group for PIAA. So they have a lot of experience of working with companies in this process, in this field. And they came in and put together a packet for us of all the different locations within the district that they felt were marketable. They met with the school board, and some places the school board said, no, we're not interested in that. The school board actually said, well, how about this or this? So we had a nice dialogue about that, adding, taking away. So we came up with an inventory they helped us come up with an inventory of locations to advertise. And then they then go out and do that marketing in our local community and find partnerships for us. And really it's helpful to have those folks on board because they're professionals at this. They do it for a number of school districts, like I said, they do it for PIAA, so they know what they're doing and how to sell marketing. So it's very beneficial to us in that regard. And really, we don't really have a marketing person here in the district that has really any knowledge or experience. I'm an accountant by my education, and so I'm really not a marketer. So they're very helpful in that regard. And that's really why we made that partnership with them.
Thanks.
What is it's a contract we have, right? A year, when is it up?
Market Street Sports contract, we brought them on much like we would do professional service like solicitor or something like that.
Okay.
It's in place, and if the district the board shows that they no longer wanted to partner with them, we would give them a notice that's in the contract. I think it's like a 30 or 60 day notice that we would say that we're no longer interested in working with them. So.
Thanks. I couldn't remember if it was a set number of years or.
Right. Yeah.
Thank you.
You mentioned we had talked about before, when we first brought them in, what things make sense, what things don't make sense. Some of that could have changed over time. There could be newer opportunities. Does it make sense to bring them back at some point and just kind of review where we are and if there's other things that we can try to expand on?
We've kind of been having those discussions with them, kind of away from the board, especially it's something that since Scott has come on board, he's had discussions with him about it, additional things, new things. We've talked about the new tennis courts with them, things like that. So we are in that. We do try to do that and keep that momentum going and keep that discussion going about. Okay, here we're doing new tennis courts. This is something that we could do, and talk to Kelly about what's feasible on the fences as far as windscreens and so forth like that. So it is a process that we're doing. Okay. The next contract is letter E. This is another contract with parents for helping us out with transportation of the students that go outside of the district. Just those students, this parent students that have gone to that one facility, so they're helping us out. It frees up a driver for us that can run routes inside the district since we're so short on drivers. And we're reimbursing the IRS mileage rate to the parents, so it's a very fair cost to us for that. And this is our second one, our second group of parents, second set of parents that are doing this for us. The next contract is a renewal for the Seesaw. This is the online student portfolio system. It shares contents with parents. This is July 1st, 2022 through 2024, and you can see the cost there, $22,275 for year 1 and $11,136 for years 2 and 3. Total cost of $44,547, and that's, like I said, that's a renewal of the Seesaw program for software package. And then the last contract is the Lakeside Educational Network. We're doing an addendum with these folks for a half of an FTE in-school counselor. And this is being funded with our ESSERS money, part of the discussion that Dr. Barczyk had in the last couple of months about how we're using the ESSER fund. And this is one piece of that, is this half-time position for the rest of the year. You get more mental health counseling. That's the
Can you
last.
talk a little bit about how that extra counselor is being used?
I can't speak to it specifically. I know that Dr. Durr or Dr. Barczyk could.
We'll figure out a report to the board.
Okay,
Okay.
I didn't know if you were gonna
Yeah,
chime in
well,
and say, I know the
I'm-
answer to this.
I think I do, and I may be able to read it and remind you, but
Okay. that's
if not,
fine.
we'll get a report to the board.
Okay.
And next on the list is Insight Financial Services. Looks like the one-on-one laptop.
Yeah, this is the last step of that, of the annual one-to-one laptop lease. The board had voted back in May to put the lease in, and then once we get everything finalized, get all the documentation from the leasing company, all the particular numbers from the computers and so forth, the code numbers and stuff, then we can actually finish the paperwork, and that's what this part is just getting that final documentation in order, getting the leases signed, so. So we do have all of our laptops. As you know, our laptops were delayed. We have them all on site now. We've been distributing them to the ninth graders. I believe almost all the ninth graders now have their new laptops. And this says, what we were able to do was work with the leasing company to hold on to last year's, the ones, and use them for the first few months. Now we're swapping them out, and then
Good.
once we get all that finished, then those old ones the leasing company will take them.
Perfect.
Okay?
That sounds good. Student activity account.
Can I go back one
Sorry,
second?
Dan.
Sean, on the Seesaw, I have Seesaw on my phone, and I like it to be able to see what's going on in my kid's class. But is that really just for parent interaction? And I wondered sometimes if the teachers, do they feel it's a burden to post on there, or is it, how is that, is it a good thing, positive?
The
Everybody's
teachers
love it.
Right.
Okay.
The teachers
It's great as a
love it.
parent, because you get to really see what's going on in the classroom.
And it really does open up, but it also allows the students to do work that gets posted that the teachers can evaluate, that there is some feedback going on as well.
Okay.
For a student to be able to record themselves reading or doing fluency Monday through Friday to show growth with a passage. And then the parent can see it as well, but the teacher can also see it and make comments.
Gotcha,
to the
so it's just
students to
not a
say,
parent
so-
interaction portal, it's also
No.
for the student
Yeah,
too?
exactly right.
Gotcha,
Yes.
alright.
Now we'll jump to the student activity account. Sorry about that.
No problem. The last item that we have for finance tonight is the class of 2025. They've put their documentation in to open up their account to start their fundraising for all the wonderful things they have ahead of them for the next 3.5 years. So we would ask the board to approve that, to let those kiddos get started in that process. So, and it takes the freshman class is usually a little bit into the year until they get their stuff here, because they got to go through their process of putting their officers in place, and I'm sure there's an educational process there and a lot of some training, things like that. So they get their things put together, and then we get them set up with a class account, and they get started. So
Perfect. Any questions?
The counselor is, it's through Lakeside, so it's primarily crisis support services at the secondary level. In terms of increased caseloads for the current people that are there. We have some part-time people, as well as there is one little piece at North Middle School. There's some crisis support services at North Middle School, as well as an increase in counseling services there, but it ends up being about a quarter of a day is what that piece of it is. So it's primarily crisis, which is because it's through Lakeside, and they provide our crisis counselors. So
Perfect. Thank you for the clarification.
certainly.
Any questions? Anybody? Thank you, Mr. Daubert. Appreciate it as well. As always, team does an excellent job.
thank you.
Next Finance Committee meeting is scheduled for February 14th. It happens to be Valentine's Day.
Valentine's flowers and chocolate, I'm just saying.
Just saying.
Just
Man.
saying. We comfortable with moving on?
Yeah,
Right.
Site Logic, they were, I asked them to shoot for around 7:15,
Oh,
so.
So we could do other items, we have a
We can
public
start with other
comment,
items.
we can, right, so, it's wonderful.
perfect.
I was looking at public comment.
Okay, I'm just gonna let you know that the facility's gonna get starting.
I got your number.
Somebody might read it. Can you make next bigger?
I got it right here.
Thank you.
It's big enough.
I was gonna say, I can zoom in here.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, good evening. Starting with the Facilities Committee, let's start off with the Policy 903, public comment, which is limited to 3 minutes. Should be directed to the presiding officer rather than individual board members, district employees, or members of the public for confidentiality and private rights. Specific comments regarding particular individuals must be communicated privately to the school board and superintendent via email at psdschoolboard@penridge.org. Okay, we have one individual that wants to make a public comment.
Mr. Taliska.
Mr. Kaluska?
Turn this around or anything?
Yeah, there is no mic.
Okay. Nick Taliska, East Rockland Township. I'm trying to catch up with this project, the GSA project, so I was hoping maybe we could clarify. I see it's amendment 3, but then I also saw it said phase 3 in there, so I don't know if I'm missing a phase 2. But if it's amendment 3, then I think I'm missing understanding what amendment 1 and amendment 2 was. So it kind of ties in with all that. I'm assuming it's part of this base project. So with the proposal, I was wondering why there wasn't a more of a consolidated cash flow analysis shown. Again, trying to understand this project, I'm familiar with performance contracts, looking at the savings guarantee, again, maybe more on the base project, but there's only really like 16% of the savings that are being guaranteed here. Most of it else is in O&M savings and the capital avoidance. So there's only about $23,000 in like electric and gas savings as part of the base project. You're guaranteeing maybe 21,000 of that, it's like 90%. That seems, I mean, and based on the ECMs, the energy conservation measures that are being done, there's like 4 of them, they're pretty straightforward. I was thinking maybe that there would be more of a guarantee level there, and it kind of ties in with, you know, the M&V options that are being chosen, the M&V costs. So just looking through it briefly, I'm sorry if I'm behind on all this, but, you know, so the district is gonna pay them $3,600 a year to provide measurement and verification on like 21 grand in savings. So that's about 17%, which is way out of line with like industry standard. It's usually 3 to 10% of verifying the savings. And there's very little risk. You know, the capital avoidance stuff has been diligently, you know, planned and looked at, as well as the operational savings costs. So I was curious about that, and that ties in with, I don't know if another phase is coming with this that'll have, there's no savings in this amendment 3, which again, you know, I understand the PA law just a little bit more familiar with other state laws with this, but there was also, so it's escalated, you know, 2.5%. I know the first cash flow said 2%, but if you look at the numbers, it's actually 2.5%, which also makes me always kind of question all the other numbers, right? Because the pro forma says 2% at the top, but you look at the numbers, it's really 2.5%. And with this option A, I mean, really all the heavy lifting is done in the post installation part with commissioning. So there seems to be a little, I don't know if it's a disconnect, but you know, there was a footnote in that base project too that kind of caught my eye about the year 1 M&V costs were rolled into the total finance cost. And I guess I'm kind of a contrarian when I think about financing a service cost, a non-capital asset for 20 years, and that's what we're doing. And I know it's a small amount, but these amounts I think do matter. The other thing I was curious about was this 15% rule, because I know other states have gotten into trouble by trying to get, building, new parking lots and doing things that were not energy related, so I think there's specific language in there about no more than, if there's not a, what's the word, causally connected to an ECM, it can only be less than 15% of the total capital cost, so that was just one thing I wanted to bring up. I'm probably sure you guys have all discussed that before, but then the other part was, so I'm assuming phase 1 has been completed, and I didn't find anything on M&V reporting, so I was kind of curious, how did they perform with those first set of projects? But those are just kind of my issues I want to bring up on that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate your comments. We have no other public comments at this time. I think our folks from SiteLogix are
I see
showing
two
up.
persons. It's Garrett.
Seeing two people coming in.
Mr. Harper, why don't you let them know for them to just come in when they're ready? And why don't we skip that and move on to other items that we can cover until they're ready?
Other people coming in addition to the doctor now.
Right, right.
We can go,
Obsolete items?
yeah, we can do obsolete items. Mr. Harper can do the number 3, the
Yes.
environmental control, so I'll kind of jump to obsolete items. Is that,
That'd be
it's
fine.
okay, we'll do those first?
Yes, thank you.
All right, so the first thing we have under obsolete items is library weeding logs for Grass Elementary School, and we will put these on public surplus. B is a piano at West Rock Hill Elementary School, broken wheels, and it's for parts. It's in fair condition, and that one we'll try to sell that on public surplus. Central Middle School, various pieces of equipment, round table, wooden desk, old TV, old VCR, some trapezoid tables, rectangular tables, and 36 green plastic chairs. This is a combination of some things that are just in really bad shape that will throw in the trash. We'll recycle the electronics, and that will take care of that. Also at Central Middle School, we have a textbook weeding log. We put that on public surplus. And we have some old wrestling mats at Central Middle School that are in really bad shape, and will just go to the trash. Over at North Middle School, we have library textbooks that will go to public surplus. At the high school, we have a old laminator that's broken and does not heat up, so we will recycle that. Technology department has a large list of old laptops, HP laptops, and so forth that are obsolete, and we will recycle those. Sellersville Elementary School has their library weeding log, and again, we will put those books on public surplus. And then finally, the maintenance department has a number of pieces of equipment that are very old, unreliable, out of service. These are pieces of equipment that we have replaced with newer pieces from our budgeting process over the last number of years, and these items will all go on public surplus, except for the salt spreader, which needs to be put in the garbage because it's in really bad shape. So that's the list this month.
Any questions regarding the list?
No.
Hearing none. We'll move to environmental control systems. Mr. Harper?
Through that.
Yeah, so part of the capital project for this coming summer, one's at Sellersville Elementary, it's asbestos abatement. So it's in 2 phases. So there's the removal of the asbestos, which are floor tiles and some ceilings. because they're starting to become loose, and we just need to have the abatement done, replace it with standard VCT tile. So this is the portion of removal, and we're doing this because we have an agreement with Environmental Control Systems to handle our asbestos and environmental issues. So the project's been bid, you can see the results, we actually had 6 bidders come in. The numbers were big across the spectrum of cost, 148,000 down to 75. Obviously 75 is the number we like the best out of that, and that's the recommendation for the asbestos abatement part.
We have experience with that company.
We have used Sargent in the past, yes, I believe they did Guth Elementary, one of our previous asbestos abatement projects.
Great.
The only other part of this is there's some air monitoring that Environmental Control Systems will provide as part of the requirements for asbestos abatement. That's not included in the abatement work. That'll be something else that comes before the board for contract approval as well.
Is that before the work or after work, or both timeframes?
So this contract will happen first, or which, you mean of the two, the air monitoring?
Air monitoring, yes.
So air monitoring will come after. That's kind of a fixed thing. It's project management, it's air sampling, and final air clearances at the end. And we'll probably see that, I guess, next month.
Okay.
But this is just getting all these pieces lined up so there's no delay. Obviously, you have the summer to get all this done, the asbestos abatement. Then once that's completed and cleared, then the floor tile can be done as a Site Logic project as well.
Any questions from the board?
Sounds good. I like the numbers.
Mr. Rucker, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Does that mean we're down to one last call in, or they were waiting for one more person to show up, but I believe they could start their presentation without, but I will confirm.
Yeah, confirm, and if not, we'll take a
Hey, can I
5-minute
ask
break.
a question?
Oh, yes, go ahead, Mr. Wars, we can hear you.
Yeah, sorry. It's better when I'm watching the live stream, I'm way behind, so sometimes I don't get in the right timing. There's no safety issues with the asbestos currently? I just wanted to ask that.
No, so there are some loose floor tiles, and anytime we find something loose, we're either removing it or resecuring it, so there's no friable asbestos in any classrooms.
Okay. Thank you.
They would prefer to take a break and do that, and wait for the remaining person to come.
Mr. Cormack, are you okay with taking a short recess? Okay,
If everyone else, move forward, okay?
we'll reconvene at 7:30, which is a 7-minute break.
There you go.
Ms. Cooper, would you give us a thumbs up when we're off? Mr. Cormack, we are back.
Thank you very much, Dr. Bolton. Let's proceed with the facilities meeting. We're going to have a presentation by SiteLogix. Folks, want to introduce yourselves?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having us here. Happy New Year, everyone, to 2020. Melissa Colstock with SiteLogix. I've been here many times before. I'm here with Andy Cesary, who is our new project engineer for this job, and will be reporting directly and regularly to you at our facility committee meetings. And then we also have Carolyn Du Bois from K&W Engineers to provide an update. Down at the end of the table, thank you, is Bruce Bechtel with Schraderberg, our architect.
Happy New Year.
We do have a handout that is being distributed here. It is a change order recommendation for approval for the district to consider. This will provide some detailed information. For us today, we'll be speaking about it in a very high-level manner, but a lot of the details can be found here. If you have any questions, Andy is the perfect person to direct those questions to. So we can get started with our presentation. We have a pretty short agenda for you this evening. Really, we'll be talking about those 2022 building maintenance projects that we discussed all last year, focusing on the high school campus paving projects, as well as district-wide paving and site work maintenance scopes of work. We'll be reviewing our 2020 and 2021 punch list summaries. So these are kind of updates for projects that are currently in place and things that we're wrapping up for you. And then we'll move on to some committee next steps in the upcoming months. So currently out to bid, what we're looking at specifically for the campus project are these parking areas and Student Academy Drive. So lot 1, just to reorient everyone, is planned south to the tennis courts. So this will be at that new parking to help support the tennis courts. Lots 4 and 5 are located at the bus station. So we have some brand new parking, expanded parking here at lot 5. And then line restriping really is what comprises lot 4. The Academy Access Drive is actually located here behind the high school. It's to support the Academy for Student Wellness. And for those students or staff that need to utilize this entrance, we've designed a turnaround for them to easily access and egress the campus. Just a small highlight for us to communicate to you. For parking lot number 4, we're just kind of showing a highlight and a detail where we will have to temporarily align the drive that is right along that new parking area so that we can put in place the retaining wall. It's only a temporary relocation. Once the retaining wall is put in place, everything will be restored to the condition that it is in now. Questions on this? Okay, so moving on, also currently out to bid is, as part of all of this, is the retention basin right in front of the North Middle School. And what this beautiful rendering illustrates is the new aesthetic that will be a part of this. K&W has taken the opportunity to really highlight this and make it more of a rain garden than just a typical retention basin. It will really help, I think, enhance the aesthetic that this campus is known for, and we'll continue to create an opportunity to kind of beautify the site. One major update, and really why we're here tonight, is to talk about the bids due and the schedule update that we're currently under. We were hoping to come tonight to show you the bid results, but because we have had such an enormous amount of contractor participation in the bid process, what that does is generate a lot of requests for information from those contractors. So right now we have over 15 contractors interested in bidding this project. Yes, that is an enormous amount of information that we then have to turn around and communicate to them. So what we'd like to do is keep that very competitive bid environment going. We prolong the bids, and what you can see now is the new bid due date is now the 19th of January. So What that means is you will not have an update on those bids at your facility committee meeting. That will occur between this meeting and your board approval. I've placed an asterisk on your bid due date or bid approval date of the 25th. It is up to this committee to decide if you would like to have a special meeting to review the bid results of the contracts that are out, and then move forward with an approval on the 25th, or you could postpone and review it at a committee meeting in February and approve it in February. So you have a couple options here, but it's up to you to discuss how you would like to review those bids.
We had talked about in our pre-meeting with SiteLogic that with the healthy contractor and the healthy bids, that we're hopeful that the information will be really, really positive when the bids come in. And so we had talked, I know Mr. Cormack was on that call, talked about the possibility of receiving the bids on the 19th, seeing what the status of those bids are, sharing that with the entire board, and then getting a sense from that standpoint as to whether we're comfortable moving it to approval on the 25th, or whether we wait and discuss it at length in February and then postpone the approval until the February meeting. So as long as everyone's comfortable with that, we'll communicate on the 19th when that information comes in, right? We're hopeful that it's going to be based on the dynamics, that it's going to be a positive feedback. And then if not, or if there's any questions that come up that can't be answered electronically, then we just push it to February and have that conversation here once we have the full group.
Yeah,
Okay?
absolutely.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Ms. Rock? The rain garden, why, what is the purpose of it? Just, I'm trying to catch up here.
He does that.
This is Carolyn speaking from K&W Engineers. Actually, that's a stormwater detention facility that's actually required for the project. So what we're trying to do is just, not only provide something that's functional and meets the stormwater management requirements, but also something that provides a good aesthetic, just given its proximity to the main entrance to the middle school area. So what we're trying to do is, it's a visually pleasing looking stormwater management facility.
Thank you.
Sure.
So it's right at the entrance, that's what it looks like here, and so the kids will be using it, what, before school and after school, or during school?
Ron, what do you mean by using it?
Hopefully the students won't be using it at all.
It's just a visual thing.
I mean, they can't go out there all the time, right? I mean, they're in school, but is it something where they have classes out there, or before school they can socialize there? Or I'm just trying to get an understanding of why we're doing it.
It's really something that's more of a visual thing, so we're not thinking that they're going to be going into the rain garden itself. However, these sort of best management practices areas can certainly be used as educational opportunities, environmental education opportunities for kids.
So it's more for beautification than for school?
No, this is actually a stormwater management facility.
Okay.
That's required from an engineering perspective for the project. So what we're doing is we're balancing the engineering aspect, but making it visually pleasing looking.
Okay, sorry I missed that. Thank you.
Okay, sure.
Any more questions? Okay, so this now brings us kind of to the second group of projects, building maintenance projects for 2022. You're all very familiar with these. Bedminster, though, we'd like to highlight just a little bit. What you're seeing is the site plan, and we did have a plan for either cold in place recycling or milling and overlay of the parking lots and the hard surface play areas. One opportunity that was presented or that arose when there was the pavement evaluation is that area that is currently the bus staging area for the school in the yellow box. It was kind of found through that evaluation that maybe it wasn't in the greatest condition, and we could potentially take the opportunity to actually address it and mill and overlay that area as well. We are recommending that the district consider this as an alternate. It's no additional cost for you to do so. We would simply bid it out as an alternate. Once the prices come in, you can elect to either select the alternate or not. benefit in doing so, of course, is that your entire site now is starting day one, all at the same level, and you don't have to worry about phasing or maintenance at different periods of time. At Deibler, North Middle School and South Middle School, we're simply looking at sidewalk repair and replacement. And at the District Maintenance and Operations Center, there is some pavement replacement. We do have a water meter location on that site. And of course, we have our salt storage shed, which, as you can see, we now have a beautiful new rendering of what that could look like, not just this site plan. The schedule for this, we are looking to bid out in February. We do have a little asterisk here for the salt storage shed. It's pending township approval. So there is a meeting this Thursday that K&W will be attending, SiteLogic will be attending, just to talk with the township and hear what they have to say and continue those discussions. But right now we are slated for approval in March, and obviously continue to build in June through August of 2022.
Thursday is the normal planning commission meeting.
Thank you.
And Mr. Harper, that's a rendering, that's not, there've been no final design color, right?
Correct.
That's just
There's been some
a concept.
feedback and some dialogue, and that's just a nice visual to see what it could look like if we choose to go that way.
Great.
Any more questions?
What would you expect the cost of that to be?
Cost is the same as we've been estimating.
Oh, I thought you meant with adding on.
Adding on.
You're talking
You talking about
milling
that
and-
thing at
You're talking
Bedminster?
about the
Yeah.
milling and overlay?
Oh,
The
the alternate.
Bedminster alternate.
I think that's what she's talking
Oh,
about.
I'm so sorry. Bedminster alternate, I don't have that number. I should have included it, but I can follow up. And, you know, we're not thinking it's gonna exceed, you know, $20,000 or anything like that.
So you can send the information to us and we'll share with the board.
Absolutely.
Great,
Yep.
thanks.
So now I'd like to invite Andy just to give you an update on the 2020-2021 projects.
Thank you for the opportunity to join the team. Recognize some faces from, couldn't tell you where, but different familiar faces. I joined the team shortly after Thanksgiving, and I've been to several school districts in the Commonwealth, and the facilities here and the staff are really committed to the community and the students, and you can definitely tell as soon as you set foot on campus. And for being a new guy here to the team, I thought I'd start off with an attaboy. It's really nice to come to a community that you can just see it. It makes projects like these that are complex and involve many different delivery methods very exciting to be a part of. And again, thank you for the opportunity to join the team. On the 2020 and the 2021 projects as a whole, we're wrapping up, quote unquote, what we call a closeout or punch list. Some of the open items when we as a team met last month, or I should say 2 months at this point, we were tracking open, or nearing, or have been resolved. Some successes would include some of the clock and intercom system, troubleshooting we've completed or have resolved the open items list, and continue to support Kelly and the district whenever new items pop in promptly. At Sailor, the steamer, we've committed to the district, and we're just pending some specifications on exactly what replacement steamer is desired, and the steamer that has been installed will remain the school district's at no additional cost to be repurposed elsewhere within the district at your leisure. The stainless steel thresholds will be, actually, I got word on the way up here, will be popped in a second time tomorrow, so hopefully fingers are crossed this will do the trick. If not, if it doesn't look right or still isn't doing, we'll keep at it until we succeed. it's not uncommon sometimes for these type of customization details like the stainless steel threshold, so it's not particularly, I would say unexpected, but it's not particularly, something that, it comes with the turf kind of thing. On the rekeying, we've hit all the buildings thus far, through today. There's about 30 or so, cores that are again within the plus or minus realm of expected, that would have issues, like sometimes they get sent the wrong one, or they just didn't fit for some reason, or they just were wrong, or we were missing them. So out of all the facilities that have only about 30 or we go plus or minus 10%, it's definitely within the margin of error, and we're actually scheduled to meet with that particular contractor tomorrow to keep at it. The chiller, while we got the crankshaft of the chiller worked up in the as-built, Mr. Harper, we got those today. We'll review those and get those into the district probably tomorrow, assuming there's no issues that we need to resolve with the contractor first before getting them to you. While we got that resolved, it exposed a new item related to it, and we're working with the engineers relating to potentially adding an expansion tank to the system, but that's, again, something we're at it, and we're trucking along on it. From a cost standpoint, that is no additional cost to the school district as part of the Guaranteed Energy Savings Act contract. The LED lighting at the white and green gyms looks phenomenal.
It really does.
It's it was the silver lining is it got installed very beyond expectations, as in AKA smooth. So that was just before the holidays, and then on the contrary, on the tennis courts, we're still working with, and we're scheduled to meet with some of the district's tennis court prime contractor on Wednesday. K&W and SiteLogic held a meeting prior to the holidays with the tennis court manufacturer to confirm and work through the exact conditions in the site for the product to be installed. Generally, we're trying to follow, not trying to, we will be following the warranty and not allowing the contractor to install at a time that would either jeopardize the warranty or the anticipated life cycle or life span of the actual product system. A lot of times they do exceed the warranty, so everybody focuses on the warranty, and sometimes it's the warranty, but it's also you want the entire lifespan of the product too. And that is sometimes much longer than the warranty. We're after the lifespan. Either way, season starts March 7th with first practices, no earlier than. That's our goal. Plan B is to have everything but the color coat installed before then. We need a minimum of 50 degrees and some other conditions around 50 degrees. And barring the details, it's temperature sensitive. And if we can get a weather break for that to allow us to put that in, that would be phenomenal. The color coat system, it's our understanding, would not inhibit play, would be able to temporarily stripe it, wouldn't be a safety concern to the players to that regard, and then come back and do the color coating and permanent striping after the season's over. The contingency plan, should that lag a couple weeks or fingers crossed not at all, would be SiteLogic would secure some indoor facilities at no additional cost to the district, and that's where the team would play their season as well as practice. Any questions on the punch list?
So about the color coding, can they still play their games there?
Absolutely.
Okay, I didn't know if that was something that was a requirement. No?
Yeah, the very first layer that they put down on the tennis courts called an acrylic resurfacer, and that's the one that actually has the texture in it. And, so you can stripe that and play on it.
So you would just stripe it and then later
Put
do
it
a
on
color
the
code over top and then stripe it again?
There you go.
Okay,
Yeah.
got it. That's what I was wondering, how you would do it without any lines.
Yeah, and that's Plan A. Plan A is that they'll
Right.
participate, but probably without the color,
Yeah.
and, at least be able to use their courts.
It still has the texture to it.
Right.
Yeah,
But you
the
were-
resurfacer's got the seam.
Okay, And you were able to at least get the paint in now, because before, I think that was the problem, right? It was back ordered and you weren't able to get the color in, is that?
It is true, the paint is, has been invoiced and paid in the October pay requisition assembled, by this, so the paint is technically owned by the school district right now, it's just on site.
Okay, so you do have it, it's just a matter of the temperature issue, if so.
It's just a temperature issue right now.
And 50 degrees for what period of time? You did say 50, not 15, right?
Yep, 50.
Okay, just want to clarify.
Right. The specification, both the KW specifications and the manufacturer's product data requires 24 hours before, 24 hours after, 24 hours after.
So 2-day window.
That's for all the it's like building a cake, so it's the first layers. That color on the end, well, the literature suggests and supports another 50 degree day for 24 before, 24 after. Again, it's the actual surface temp, it's not just the ambient air temp.
Correct.
We want to make sure we have the right optimum color, because that's the product, that's the thing that everybody's going to see. That's your wow factor. Right?
No point in rushing it.
There's no point rushing or something. Like, we're at 13 degrees tonight or whatever.
Well, yeah.
It's a couple weeks ago.
Is there a temperature that has to be had for a couple weeks prior to putting down the paint? Because we had discussed at the meeting, looking at a 2-week period prior and a 2-week afterwards before use.
Yeah, I heard that too, and unfortunately, I haven't been able to find anything to substantiate that. And to be honest, I don't even know where the source came from on that. But I heard that too, and I believed it for the first 3 weeks. But
someone from the staff said it.
Yeah, we talked. So this week, our intent is to meet with Semmel, again, the district's prime contractor, excavation and support surfacing, and convey to them the conversations that we had with Lakehold, the manufacturer of the product that they submitted and that is in possession here, paid for.
And their chemists.
And their chemists, that's the thing.
And we talked to the guy that develops the product.
And the scheme is that a lot of the manufacturers will put in these requirements that are meant to be a one-size-fits-all. You know, they cover everything, and they would apply to people in Florida just as much as people in Alaska. And we're fortunate in that the Lakehold product, the chemist that actually would substantiate any of that stuff, I believe lives around the Pennsylvania-Ohio border. The product that was provided, or the big barrels that came from, is actually from Harmony, PA. So these are all, for geographic purposes, still local. And when you said, hey, we have a climate that fluctuates pretty quickly, and it is totally within reason to expect, a good week in February of some solid 60 degree or 50 degree weather, and I got to worry about is the overnight lows. They get it. They get it. And so every indication from the conversations we've had is that they've been supportive of that. They're not yelling, hey, you're nuts. And so with the product data that they've already published in the 24 before, 24 after, it's just, I think it's just we're going to start the process tomorrow or on Wednesday with the contractor of getting all the ducks in a row so that if the weather does break it, we're not waiting and going, oh, let's think about it now. We want to be ready so it's ready to go.
The lighting in the gym is fantastic. I saw it for the first time right before Christmas break, and it sounds corny, but it is like night and day. I mean, it really was nighttime. Suburban One, when it come to take pictures of our kids, they would take pictures for, senior gifts, and they would always tell us, well, we'll see you at one of your away matches because the lighting in your gym is awful. So when I went in there in mid-December, wow, it's a really great difference, so thank you.
We'll pass that to the contractor that installed it.
Yeah, that's excellent feedback, and we appreciate
They
that.
love hearing that stuff.
Eddie, I'm just gonna bring you right back to the tennis courts again, even though I don't play tennis, so
I don't play tennis
pickleball on me. Do you have any information as to what if the temperature changes, what happens to the surface? if there is something that goes wrong in that temperature calculation, does the part of that paint peel off? Does it, I mean, what happens to that if it gets put down in a wrong manner and fashion?
Sure, that's actually a question almost to the phrasing Carolyn and I had asked the chemist and the manufacturer rep, who I believe is from New Jersey. They said that it's just a bonding, it's a failure of bonding. The chemical reaction between the surface and the product never has that chemical reaction, and since it never has that chemical reaction, you almost get immediate failure. It's not like something.
So in other words, you just like peel off.
Yeah.
But you know right away, so I
He said that
once, you know right away, like within, the day of the.
He said within 24, 48 hours, you would know instantaneously, within that time period that you don't have a solid chemical bond. And so at that point, you would go back to the remediation would be essentially removing that, peeling that off, shot blasting, whatnot, scraping, until you get that.
Is there a way in which we could get some form of calculation if it doesn't work? How long it'll take to put the new bonding material on the surface? Is it a 2-week process to remove it if it doesn't work? Is it a week's I'm just trying to think about the children that are gonna be playing on those courts. They wanna get on those courts, so the sooner the better. But if there's a bonding problem, how long will that later take?
This may sound like I'm dodging the question, but I'm not.
No.
It is something that you have to see it and treat each scenario on a case-by-case basis. Sometimes if it's just a small spot, you can remediate that on the thing, and you'll, since you're building a layer on like a cake, the subsequent layers would take care of that, and you just, as soon as you got the bond on the first one, you'd be good, and on the subsequent layers as well. If it's a much larger area and it's much more involved, well then yeah, you're going to want to maybe possibly look at removing the whole and going back from
I just don't want Mr. Harper to be standing out there all night long and the next day to make sure it's on.
Just like on Father of the Bride.
But that turnaround, when that chemist that I met from Lakehold said we would know with that type of feedback, that was surprising. That was fantastic. We were very happy to hear that. We were concerned that other products and other systems, particularly when you're involving a chemical reaction for that, whether you're doing paints or track coatings or whatnot, you almost have to wait a whole freeze-thaw, a whole year. You want it to freeze, then thaw, contract and expand, and it's a whole bunch of like, well, everything's looking good, and you're wondering, and it's not till the following season do you really find out whether you were really okay a long time ago. That type of turnaround, that's a really positive thing for the situation we're in.
Thank you.
Welcome, anytime. Any other questions?
Will you see any discoloration if you're modifying or remediating any of the top coat?
Discoloration?
Like if you're doing any patching or any of the, because you can't really match.
You want it to be consistent. If it's a brand new surface, you want it to look brand new,
Yeah, that's
right?
Yeah,
Absolutely,
exactly.
yeah.
Well, color-wise, by delaying the color coat, that's the thing that everyone would see. So color-wise, you wouldn't, in theory, you would not see any type of remediation. Remember, the plan's not to do remediation,
Correct.
it's to get it right.
I'm just thinking underneath, if it's a little darker
Right.
shade and the shade's gonna bleed through, you'll see like a darker blend.
And then also keep
They put several layers on,
different
so,
layers, right?
and the color coats, I mean, they're a cake.
Yeah.
And they put on several coats of that. So, yeah, you wouldn't, like if there was a slight difference in that, the resurfacer is gray. And so if you had a little teeny difference in that, they wouldn't tell you.
Okay.
And keep in mind the lower levels of those cakes, the first couple layers, they're meant to fill. They're just like, the asphalt that's out there is very porous. It's not smooth, even though it looks smooth. It's not smooth when you put your hand on it. And those layers of the cake are meant to fill those. So if you had a first layer that you wanted to patch up or make right, there's a small little area, theoretically, those would get all worked out as the cake keeps getting built because it's just doing the same thing as what the asphalt.
Like a flash patch on the top floor and stuff like that before you put everything. I'm just had to ask.
No, go for it.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So next steps, right now, we just kind of laid out for January, February, March. This is what actual board approvals look like going forward from facility committee meetings. So January, we have that asterisk for that high school main campus paving project, right? Depending on if you'd like to elect to board approval later this month or postpone it to next month. What is included in addition to that main campus though are what you have detailed in the packet that was presented to you for the tennis court change orders. Anthony, you could, or sorry, Anthony, you could speak in detail to those.
By the intent of the board factor, the change orders, there's 3 change orders, 2% on, 1 for BSI. The intent of this recommendation here is to stay within the no surprises theme. These are all change orders that have either been aware of to the committee, to the staff, and or are within the applicable unit prices that are within the existing executed contracts the district has with these 2 contractors. When we come back to you in February, we have reevaluated some of the change orders that have been previously presented. So in the February Facilities Finance Committee, we'll have those change orders involved on that agenda. Ideally, some modified pricing to those who sought from those prime contractors, some additional substantiating and documentation to them. And so we'll have a similar packet to this, only not the night of, but several days prior, because there'll be a little bit more involved in our recommendations to treat as they were applied at that point. Also in February is, I think we've already made, SiteLogic has issued a reimbursement payment to the district for the retaining wall change order from back in September. I believe that was in early December that was made. Also in February will be some additional supplemental reimbursements that we'll bring to the agenda too, that will cover funding for SiteLogic as well. Those will be treated as a deduction order to the existing contracts with SiteLogic again on the February agenda, because the portions of those change orders that would theoretically be on there that would go to SEML or BSI would also be on the agenda at the time. They would help offset and give you a total picture.
Which brings us actually to the March 28th board approval, which would then be kind of that second set of those district-wide paving projects. And the option to elect the alternate at Bedminster will be one of your items as well. So just very high level, what to expect in the next upcoming months from SiteLogic, K&W, and Trader Group. What questions do you have for us that we can address?
You know, I guess they're coming back at some point with the additional feedback from people who have those air conditioning units that are installed, as well as, I think they were going to set up an opportunity for us to maybe
do a walkthrough.
Or something, yeah.
Yes, so I think just with, so we have the references, right? And the projects that we could potentially reference for you. What we're waiting for is dates, times, places for you to actually have that walkthrough, in addition to just detailed feedback on how those systems are operating in those different spaces and places. We want to be able to present all of that information at once so that it's not piecemeal, and we're expecting to have that for February.
Okay, great, thanks.
Yeah.
Any other questions from board members? Ron?
No, I'm good.
All right.
It's very thorough.
Okay. Thank you so much for your time this evening. We appreciate it.
All right, thank you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate your
Yeah.
time.
Yep, and we'll follow up with potential alternate estimates for you.
I'm sorry, the Giza contract amendment number 3?
Yeah, we have the GISA contract amendment number 3 that
Yes.
was sent through. We have that on the agenda for approval.
For January.
Yeah.
Or no, or
Yeah,
tonight.
Yep.
Okay.
Well, it'll be approved in January, it's on
Yes.
tonight's committee meeting. So they have the document. Is there anything that you guys want to talk about with the GISA amendment?
Yeah, I mean,
Is there anything
we're happy to discuss whatever you want, but it's, all the GISA projects that we were discussing that kind of complement the projects that we discussed tonight. So changes at North Middle School STEM room, West Rock Hill kitchen, the guidance changes that are happening here, as well as the IT relocation, and there's another project I can think of off the top of my head, but all of those changes that we had discussed.
You were not here, you were not in the room for it. There was public comment specifically to Giza and amendment number 3.
Okay.
There were a series of questions that we will follow up with the community member about, but if there are questions that still we are not able to respond, should we send them to?
Yes,
Who?
you send them to me.
Send them to
And
you.
I will direct them to whomever.
Great, okay. Because we just want to make sure that we get back to the community member who made those public comments, and I'm not sure what Mr. Harper will be able to handle, but just in case there are pieces specific to this or other amendments, we'll send them off to you then.
Send to me.
Great.
Thank you.
Melissa, is it fair to say that the document that the district has is essentially covers all the scope and decisions that were previously reviewed, discussed, approved, and this is just an administrative,
Yes,
right?
yes.
But fire away with any questions, we'll go for it.
Thank you.
Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Uh,
Do we have any other items that I might have missed since we've
Public comment.
gone back and forth?
I was looking to make sure that we
Public
didn't
comment.
miss any. Yeah, it's just,
Signed up. Okay.
hold on.
Everything's fine, sir? Yes.
You want to announce the next meeting then? Then we can adjourn?
Sure, I can do that.
February 14th.
Was it?
February 14th.
Oh, January 14th, that's right.
February 14th.
Valentine's Day.
Valentine's Day.
I got it.
Oh, I didn't.